we are 3 speakers in, 2 to go for the Angular Walkabout stream. If you're just now joining us, or maybe caught in the middle of the last session and you're not sure what's going on, this is a stream that we're hosting today with speakers that are talking directly to beginners only in the Angular space. So I'm really excited to welcome our next speaker. Joining us now, drum roll, Erik.
Hey everybody, what's up?
we're twins. Look at our background. People don't know it, but we're actually in the same room.
Yeah, she's just over there.
Right? She's right there. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Erik. Can you tell us, okay, before we get to who you are and what we're talking about in your session today, can you tell us where you are and what time it is for you? It's my icebreaker.
Absolutely. So I'm in Harriman, Utah, and it is 11:11. That's a good time.
Excellent. It's 12:11 here, so we're not that far off. Most people, it was dinner time for everyone who's joined us so far. So we're.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope that I can be your entertainment for tonight. I don't have the Chardonnay, but I've got the RxJS for you. And hopefully it doesn't ruin your appetite.
So Erik, tell us a bit about yourself and perhaps what we'll be dabbling in today.
Awesome. So Alyssa came to me and was like, hey, would you like to give a talk for beginners? And I'm like, heck yeah, that's my thing. I love helping make things complicated simpler. And I don't think that we should just give up because it's hard. I think we should teach, and I think we should make it simpler. And some people do that by making the code better. I mainly do that by making it possible to learn stuff. So mostly on my free time, I do a lot of running of meetups. I run an international meetup that's sponsored by ngConf called the Angular Community Meetup. We have a series in the Americas time zone, and we have a series in the Europe and Africa time zone. So if you're eating dinner right now, that series for the Europe and Africa time zone might be just for you.
I know. Yeah. When I first saw that, because I went on meetup.com and I was registering for the meetup, and I was like, oh, there's so many things happening, because you have one happening for each zone. So like, do you have just like a team that's in like another time zone that helps you with that? How do you?
Yes. So we have some
You're just
fantastic
awake all hours of the day.
Well, I'm not too. I'm also the father of 3 kids. So, but of course, my wonderful, powerful wife, she helps me through this time. And but yeah, so we've recruited Duncan Faulkner from Europe, or from UK, and I'm looking still for someone from Africa to recruit on that team as well. And soon we'll be recruiting people from Australia and Asia to run that time zone as well. So that'll be fun.
That is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I've never heard of a meetup that is trying to hit all the time zones. So very cool.
Thank you.
And I have been to a couple, and I would highly recommend the meetup if you haven't been yet. It's like 10 out of 10. It gave me very much like conference vibes, but while virtual, which was needed right now for me, at least. So
I think the coolest thing is that people can contribute and people can talk live, which is fun. It's like, oh, here's Alyssa Nicoll. Oh, you can talk to her. You can laugh at her. You can make faces at her while she's giving her talk, and she'll see you.
No, it's so much fun. And you guys, your team pulled it off really well. So I love it. Oh, can you share screen? Do you want me to share something? I can post something to the
share my screen,
the peoples, if you would like. If you have that in your heart, I can make that happen.
I suppose. Let's see. And then a little later, I'll tell you some other things that I do that you can get involved in as well. I put a lot of work into making this fun, because a lot of the presentations I do are typically just like very dry and to the point. Well, this one, sometimes that's not the best way to learn. I found that the best way to learn is through stories. So let me tell you a story about Angular, RxJS, and you. You're going to be best friends after this. You ready?
This is beautiful. You made this? You made this? Okay.
Well, I used some things to help me generate images. Let's go. All right. Let's see if I got my notes and everything ready. All right. So the reason why I chose RxJS is because if you're learning Angular, actually, first of all, can you all see my screen? Is everything good, Alyssa? Everyone can hear me well?
It looks
Okay.
beautiful. Like 10
So
out of
the
10.
reason why I jumped into RxJS was because if you want to learn Angular and you consider yourself a beginner or even like not a beginner, beyond that, then RxJS is a big part of everything we do with modern Angular. It's in all of our logic, it's in all of our templates, it's in all of our state, it's everywhere. So I wanted to make that as attainable as possible. So you might already be like a pro with Angular, and this might just be a refresher. But anyway, I have a habit of choosing very ambitious subjects for 40-minute time slots, but if I'm going to try not to go too quickly because it's an important subject, nor too slow because I do want to get to everything. I want you to think of this talk in two halves. The first half is me convincing you as to why RxJS is awesome, you should learn it, and why you should be a friend back to RxJS and spread the good word. Okay? The second is to teach you the fundamentals of how to do RxJS in your Angular code. There will be no live coding today, as really I want to just teach you the fundamentals, but I will show you some code excerpts from my own code, and that will be in the slides. So without further ado, let's go. So I find it extremely distracting when someone tells you a bunch of words that you don't understand. It's like, oh, RxJS is reactive extensions for JavaScript. What is ReactiveX? What's an observer pattern? What's an iterator pattern? What is functional programming? Well, the good news is, even though that's the definition and that comes from the official docs, you don't necessarily need to know this right now. I want you to know that RxJS stands for Reactive Extensions for JavaScript. It's a library for composing asynchronous and event-based programs by using observable sequences. I'm going to explain every single one of these words in a few minutes. Okay. RxJS also provides some new types of some just new types for your code, and just to risk distracting you even more, some of these types are observable, observer, scheduler, subject, and operators. So big distraction, I get it, but don't worry for now. By defining RxJS for you, I've introduced a ton of loaded concepts that you might not understand yet. That's okay. Let's get going. First of all, we need to figure out what this word was, which was asynchronous. All right. I think a lot of people skip over this when they're trying to teach new people about RxJS. You have to understand what asynchronous means. So before we jump into that, let's go even more basic. What do arrays and objects have in common? Well, they're kind of like boxes. And every time I'm teaching a new person, I do some mentorship for individuals once in a while. And something I like to compare things and use analogies a lot. So arrays, we're talking about an array here. An array is something in computer science, it holds references to several variables. It could be one variable, it could be many, okay? So think of an array as a box. Boxes are only useful for containing other things. Boxes can contain one or many things inside of them. You can take things out of a box and put new things back in the box, however you like. Arrays are like these things, okay? Objects. Objects are also like boxes for the exact same reasons, okay? So you can think of objects. They're a thing that contains other things, right? Well, the reason why I say this is because observables are like arrays and objects. They're like boxes. They contain things. They're useless for the most part unless they contain something or unless they're being used as a signal for something. The thing about observables is that they contain things, but it's like catching something on the fly. So I put this fun image of the SpaceX net boat thing. I can't remember what it's called.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's
That's
trying to
so
catch
cool.
the fairing, right? So that they can save a ton of money and reuse it. So it's sort of like that. An observable is ready to catch something that you don't know when it's going to land or how. Let's get more into this. So I designed this terrible graphic to enhance my box analogy. All right. So up
Really?
here,
That's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
thank you. I got this empty box. Okay. It's a sad box. There's nothing inside. And then Erik came along and I said, I put something in the box. I did it. I know I did it. And I filled up that box. Okay. That is an example of synchronous programming. There was an empty box. I put something in the box. Now the box is full. All right. Well, here's an example of asynchronous down here. I have an empty box. It's all sad. And then somebody somewhere somehow put something in the box. I was never here. Somebody put something in the box for me. And I invented a robot to watch the box and let me know when somebody put something in the box. Okay. Now I have a filled box. This is an example of asynchronous programming. The questions are, when will we get the thing that we're waiting for? What will we get exactly? And will it succeed or not? So let's dive into that. So with synchronous, when will we get it? Now. What will we get? Whatever we put there in the box. What will it succeed? Well, I know it succeeded because I put the thing in the box. All right. I need to have, the problem with synchronous programming is I need to already have the thing that I'm trying to put in the box. In most cases, that will be some data that we have, and we call that hard-coded data or constant data because we already have this data in our code. Okay. But for the most part, we need things that we don't have, and we can't just put it in the box because we have to ask another web server for that thing. That's why we use asynchronous programming. Okay. When will we get it? At some point. What will we get exactly? I think I know, but I'm not 100% sure. Will it succeed or not? I hope so, but I'll have to be prepared in case it doesn't succeed.
You know, it's hilarious because it sounds like nobody should want this asynchronous thing.
It sounds terrible. It sounds like what the heck? Why would you want to do this? Well, here's the key, this bottom part. I don't need to have the thing I want to put in the box yet. Instead, I can expect to receive it and prepare to respond once I get it. So that's the power. It's like, instead of just me trying to program this thing, other people are programming their servers and their applications, and I'm asking them to give me their data, to give me the things that I need. So I can put, and I'm not even putting them in the box. I'm just saying, here's a box. Stranger, come drop something in it. Thank you. And then I set some code up to respond to that. All right. This is super powerful. Okay. This is how all modern web development is being done. Nobody's building the data into their applications. So asynchronous programming has existed in the web since Ajax became a thing. We're not about to do a history lesson on that because I only have 40 minutes, but go look up Ajax if you want some interesting history on that. So asynchronous, well, there's this thing called promises. Before we used promises, we used callbacks and Ajax for things. Well, promises was like a huge benefit to everyone. Basically, a promise is like a box. It contains nothing, and then we are saying that we want it to contain something. So we make a call to a server and say, we want that thing that you have. Well, we don't know when that server is going to get back to us. You know, that's the thing about the internet. It's sort of like calling someone on the phone. We don't know when they're going to pick up and tell us what we want to hear. So, or if they'll even tell us what we want to hear. Sometimes they'll tell us, you're ugly, go away. We don't want telemarketers. So anyway, the result that you'll get back, once we get that result, we have a callback function which contains some logic we defined in case we successfully receive something or not. With promises, we say the promise has been fulfilled, okay? And anything that was waiting for that promise to be fulfilled can now trigger its logic. So it's like a promise to receive something. Promise me you'll put something in the box while I'm not looking. Okay, you did. Great. Well, because you promised that, I had been prepared to do something once I get you to put something in the box. The thing about promises is that they are one and done. We ask for something, we get it, we move on. Well, promises have some other failings as well. In fact, But you might be thinking about this, like, to be frank, what's the point of RxJS then? Promises allow us to leave a box out, people can put stuff in it, and we walk away, and we'll get it eventually, right? Well, so what is RxJS? What's the point? Well, if you did ask what's the point of RxJS, it's okay. A lot of people write articles every day attempting to reject RxJS in all of its grounds. They think it's unnecessary. They think it's overly complex. So what does all of this have to do with RxJS? I'm trying to sell you on RxJS. So why am I telling you this? RxJS solves the same thing as promises, yet offers you better features which simplify, streamline, and frankly, enable things you can't do with promises. And you might be thinking, I'm a master at promises. Like, you can't tell me this. Well, I can. So promises, yeah. In the world of Angular development, we tend to think of promises as broken promises. We don't like using promises unless we have to. We instead use RxJS for everything we can. RxJS can do everything promises do, but better. And it can even do things promises can't. Probably going to get some hate mail after this. All right, here we go. Better code bases. All right. These are the official reasons from ReactiveX, which is, if you think of RxJS, it's reactive extensions for JavaScript. Well, one of the coolest things about ReactiveX is that the technology that RxJS is giving to us in JavaScript is that it's made for every technology, every coding language, and every platform. So you can use this in your Java. You can use this in your C#. You can use this. You can use ReactiveX. So the things that you learn here today, you'll be able to use them even if you're not just a JavaScript developer. And you can use them in React. You can use them in Vue and Svelte, all of them. Okay. So what does it give you? It gives you more functional programming. Avoid intricate stateful programs using clean input and output functions over observable streams. Okay, I haven't taught you what an observable is yet. I'm getting there. Less is more. Async error handling. Concurrency made easy. Okay, I read the titles. Let's move on. It's awesome. Okay. Here's some big names who use ReactiveX in their daily work. Well, I think there's a few more companies that need to be added to this list, but it's a little hard to get there because, well, let's just take a look at the stats. RxJS, there are 23.6 million downloads of RxJS per week. And you'll see that a few weeks ago, it was 25 million. Before that, it was 23. So it's somewhere between 20 and 25 million per week downloads of this technology. Well, just for fun, I compared it to React, Angular, and RxJS and Vue. And RxJS has more weekly downloads than all of them put together. And almost times 2. So that tells you RxJS is kind of a big deal. No, hold on. ReactiveX, like RxJS, what's the big deal? How could it be more popular than these frameworks? Well, ReactiveX is more than an API. Okay, it's an idea, a breakthrough in programming. It has inspired several other APIs, frameworks, and other programming language. This is a revolution of the way that we do things. By the way, here OSS stands for open source software, if you weren't aware. Now, popularity isn't everything when it comes to technology. Generally, we love tech that is above a certain threshold of popularity because that tells us it's safer to use this technology in our professional work. Okay, but when it comes to an industry redefining and cross-platform technology like ReactiveX or RxJS, in our case as web developers, it really matters how popular this is. It's because it tells us it's a valuable skill set. We'll be able to take this with us to other jobs. It's well maintained and it's enhanced often. It spans many communities, okay? And it's learnable, it's teachable, it's understandable, it's useful. That means because so many people use it, there's people like me giving talks like this to you today to help you understand and make things easier for you. So before we jump into the specifics of RxJS, let me talk a little bit about what event-driven programming is. Remember, this was part of the definition of RxJS, why it exists. The paradigm of event-driven programming is a fairly simple concept. I use the word simple, but I understand it probably isn't simple to everyone, and it wasn't simple to me when I started. So that was the wrong word choice. But you build your program so that it reacts to the user's actions. It's kind of simple to understand that. Your program is all about reacting, not the React framework, the verb reacting. It's about reacting to user actions, such as mouse clicks, key presses, voice activation, sensor outputs, messages containing data from other programs, including programs running on other servers. In Angular, all of your logic is based on these kind of events. So it makes perfect sense that Angular, the framework, decided to include RxJS as a core library, because RxJS is about making it easy to react to these events. Okay. So Angular and RxJS are best friends. Will you be their friend? Even though RxJS is requisite for the Angular framework, some developers opt into not using it any more than is absolutely necessary. I will say, from my experience, this is a mistake. Part of the reason that they do this, though, is that they were reacting to events long before RxJS existed, using callbacks and promises. Another part of the reason some developers don't use RxJS much with their Angular applications is that it adds a learning curve to your development. And even though observables are here to stay, it's not always easy to justify learning a new thing when your head's down, working on building new features and fixing bugs for your company. I'd argue that we constantly need to be improving our knowledge and skill sets, even if it's on our own time. But even if it's necessary, I get it. It's not always easy to make time for it. RxJS, it's not your flashy, flighty friend. RxJS is the friend who's there for you, helping you at all hours of the day to make better applications. Let's jump into the fundamentals of RxJS. The observable is the first thing your new friend offers you. An observable represents the idea of an invocable collection of future events or values. Observables are a collection of values over time that we use to contain data retrieved asynchronously. Okay, it is both of these things. They serve as a complete replacement for promises in our web applications and provide more benefits and use cases on top of it. It's important to remember that observables don't do anything by themselves. A box doesn't do anything by itself. It only does something if you open the box and take things out of it. Same is true for observables. To take things out of an observable, you subscribe to them. We're going to be talking about how to how to subscribe to an observable later on. But first, I want you to know the power of observables. Your code becomes more reactive, which means that you're writing less code and that you're responding to the things that matter most. You can compose your observables in many useful ways, meaning you can take multiple observables and combine them together. I'd like to see promises do that. Oh, well, they can, but it's a real pain in the ass. Forgive my language. They also allow you to pass streams containing one or more pieces of data. Remember, promises pass one thing and then they're done. It's a promise. An observable is a stream. Things can go down a stream. Think of a river, and you have a boat going down the river, and there's another one. Oh, there's another one. That was fast. Okay. It's a stream. Use them without data if you want to. So you can have a box that's literally just a message. If somebody sends me an empty box in the mail after this, I'm going to be very concerned. However, with observables, you can send signals to other parts of your code, and you don't need to pass data. So it makes sense why Angular also included RxJS for sending signals around the app. You can also subscribe to an observable in many different places at once. It's kind of like television. It's broadcast from one place, but a lot of people can be watching it at once. You can terminate observables by completing them, and you can unsubscribe from them. Okay. One of the greatest failures and well-documented failures of promises is that there is no way to cancel them. And for those of you who care about, well, is my application crashing people's computers because I'm using too much of people's memories? on their computer, their computer memory allocation. Well, observables give you a way to free up the memory that you've reserved, whereas promises do not. 4 ways to create observables. All right, so this is how you make these things. You can use using one of several features in Angular that generates observables. Using a library that works with Angular, they often generate observables. 3, using an RxJS creation operator. 4, using an RxJS subject. Let's dive into each of these and how they are different. First, where does Angular generate observables? You might be thinking, I never saw this. Well, HTTP client is the thing that we use to get data from other people's servers. That generates observables. The router uses observables quite heavily. Events uses observables, and you can actually use from event instead of using the event binding in the template. You can use from event to control an RxJS observable and get the clicks and things generating streams through the observable. And Angular third-party libraries, some notable ones are NGRX, which is for reactive state. It's based on RxJS, and Redux. If any of you come from the React community, Angular Material is a really great way to have custom components built by the Angular team in your application. And Angular Fire, if you like Firebase, and I do, then Angular Fire is a really great tool, and it uses observables as well. All right, so another way to generate observables is using subjects. So the second thing your new friend RxJS offers you is subjects. The gist of subjects, well, RxJS subjects are basically observables with 3 extra methods, 3 extra functions that are part of them, if you will. It comes with a next, an error, and a complete method. You can create a subject like this. All you have to do is write a new subject. Of course, you have to import RxJS into your file as well. You can create an observable from a subject by calling .asObservable on it. Okay, this allows you to completely control an observable. Basically, you can put things down the stream by using a subject. A subject is an observable you created because you want to do something reactively with the data that you have available to you. Okay. There are 4 types of subjects. More often than not, you'll be using regular subjects or behavior subjects. That's why I put them in bold. The main difference between subjects and behavior subjects is that with a behavior subject, you always have a value contained in them. They are what is called stateful. You create them with a value, and anything that subscribes to that subject will get the latest value stored in the behavior subject. So with subjects, you don't have anything inside of it, okay, necessarily. You don't have to create it with a value, and these are often very handy for sending signals rather than data around your application. Say, I want to trigger a bunch of logic to happen suddenly because something happened. Well, I don't need any data, so I'm going to use a subject for that. A behavior subject also will always give you the latest value, whereas a subject, it might not even have a value. So it only emits. Things only start coming down the stream after you've subscribed to it. And I'm still going to get to this, how to subscribe to an observable in a little bit. The replay subject and the async subject are not basic usages of RxJS, so I won't cover them here, but they are useful. Operators. That is the third thing your new friend RxJS is giving you. Why are they cool? Well, we'll cover more about both kinds of operators a little bit later. Well, actually, probably the next slide. But in this case, there are 2 kinds of operators, 2 categories. One is the creation category. I find this to be the best way to teach operators, by the way. There are other ways of categorizing operators, but I like this one. Creation operators are functions that create observables with predefined behavior. You usually use these in conjunction with pipeable operators, which is the other kind of operator. One of the simplest being the of operator. The of operator allows you to put any value inside of an observable. So basically, it's your way of getting a box to put something inside, okay? Some creation operators. So combine latest operator takes 2 or more observables and combines them together. The latest values emitted by each will be emitted down the stream. So here's an example. I have this .campaigns and this .notes. I'm a huge nerd, so this is RPG related, okay? Combine latest, we're saying every time there's a new campaign data or new notes data, we want to be notified, and we want to get that new data downstream. Another super handy creation operator is from event. You can use from event, like I said earlier, to say, oh, well, somebody clicked on my document and I want to do something every time they click. For example, maybe you want your screen to go dark or something. I don't know why you'd want to do that. More likely you want to keep the user logged in as long as they're using your application. But if you notice that they're away from their keyboard for a certain amount of time, you might want to say on every single click, we want to get an emission, and we're going to watch that observable. We're going to subscribe to it, and we're going to say, oh, well, the user's still here, so we're not going to log you out. Okay. So the two categories of operators, we covered creation operators. Creation operators leave you with a new observable, but pipeable operators transform an existing observable. Okay, they manipulate them. So to use a pipeable operator, you take your observable and you call .pipe on it. And inside of that .pipe, you can place these pipeable operators. They're just functions, okay? It's a very readable syntax. They can be chained. It's a very powerful thing. You can combine as many of these pipeable operators together as you need to, okay? So one pipeable operator is the filter operator. It's fantastically useful. We'll filter out anything emitted in your stream that doesn't cause the filter's handler function to return true. The take operator is primarily used for triggering logic downstream only once. It can be set to more than once. It's also helpful for automatically unsubscribing / completing your observable. Remember how we talked about promises can't be canceled? Well, observables and subscriptions can. So let's get into that a little bit more in a second. So a couple more pipeable operators you should probably know, being this is the fundamentals of RxJS, is map and switch map. So there are many operators to go over, but let's do these two first. The map operator is your go-to for transforming your observable's value into something different. If you've ever used arrays, it's kind of like that. Arrays have a .map function, and you can map every single value in your array to something slightly different or completely different, or delete them all if you want. Map allows you to go over everything in the observable as well and change the value inside of it. The switch map operator should be your first choice whenever you decide that I needed to get some data from a first observable, but now I need to get some data from a different observable. And so the switch map operator is kind of well named, though it's not named because of this, because it allows you to switch to a different observable and have the context of the value inside of the previous observable. So remember, this is a stream, so you can think of the switch map as we've divided the stream into a new lane, if you will. So the water comes here, and then we got to this point, and we've got the data that we needed from the first observable. Well, now we're going to switch to a different observable, and you can. Oh, I guess I left out that slide. So anyway, it allows you to switch midstream. Now that said, it's more complicated than that. And how it's more complicated is that it subscribes to that first observable, and then it subscribes to another observable inside of that subscription. So it does some nesting of subscriptions for you. But
and we're not afraid of that.
We're not afraid of that, as long as you're using the operators to do it. If you're subscribing to an observable, and we'll show you how to do that in a second, and you're subscribing to another observable inside of that observable, that you should be worried about. Okay. All right. Actually, there are some other operators that are similar to switch map. They are merge map, concat map, and exhaust map. These are 3 pipeable operators that allow you to switch to a different observable or subscribe to an inner observable, if you will. You don't need to know about them right now because I just want you to know, hey, if I need to get some data out of an observable and then do something with another observable, I'm going to use switch map as my default. Okay. All right, let's get into subscribing. Cancelable subscriptions are the 4th thing that your new friend RxJS is offering you. There's no point to learning how to use observables and operators if you never learn how to subscribe to them. Well, it's very easy. Let me show you how. And also remember this, observables don't do anything unless they are subscribed to. Subscribing to an observable in the way to make logic happen every time the observable is a way to make logic happen every time your observable emits. Remember how promises are like a box? Well, observables are like a box, and people can put something in it and you can take it out and react to it. Well, they can put another thing in the box. Promises, you took the box away. But observables, you can leave the box there as long as you want and keep collecting data as you want to. If your observable emits one time, like with a typical HTTP request, then your logic in the subscribes callback will trigger one time. If your observable emits many times down the stream, many things come down the stream, like when you create an observable from a click event listener using from event pipe or from event creation operator, then that same logic is in the subscribe method's callback function will trigger every time the observable emits. So this is for the more than one case. In this example, it would be every time the user clicks on something, it would emit. A common use case for subscribing to an observable is because you want to get the data out of the observable, or you want to react to just a signal, and that observable only exists to send signals. All right. We're almost done. I think I'm running out of time. How much time I got, Alyssa?
I tried to give you an extra 5 minutes, so 7. If that's too much, we can end early, but that's what I'm hoping.
I appreciate it. Yeah. This is a lot. My voice is dying here, but I'm trying. Okay, so
Jacob, so I just want to you got a shout out. This is an amazingly great explanation, so helpful. So
thank you, Jacob.
A little bit of encouragement.
And everyone else who didn't say so. Thank you for coming here and expanding your knowledge today. So, a subscription. Well, a subscription is returned when you call .subscribe on an observable. You can store that subscription in a variable if you want to, but it's not necessary. At least not in Angular. The main reason to do this is because you want to call unsubscribe on it so that you can cancel your subscription later on. Remember, we couldn't cancel our promises, but we can cancel our observables. And it's even more important to cancel our observables because they will keep going forever. So in your application, you need to be canceling your observables your subscriptions when you no longer need them. Okay. A subscription is how you get the value out of an observable. There are better ways of unsubscribing than calling unsubscribe on a subscription. So there's another way. The better way is to subscribe to observables in Angular is by using the built-in async pipe. Okay. So this is the go-to option if you're referencing your observable from your HTML template. You can use a pipe, a built-in pipe. Now this isn't the same as the RxJS pipe function. This is the built-in Angular pipe decorator or class type, if you will. So Angular has these built-in pipes that process things right there in your template. There's a bunch of benefits to using pipes, which I won't go into right now, but you should look it up if you're interested. So use the async pipe. It's built into Angular. If you reference your observable in your HTML template, then you can use a pipe with it to automatically subscribe to the observable and return the latest unwrapped value, meaning the value contained in the box, or the values that keep being put in the box in this case. So using async pipe is arguably the best way to get the value out of your observables. You should generally use async pipe whenever you need an observable to display in your templates, and when you want to pass it via its value to a component via property binding. When you're first learning RxJS, there's this thing that we do that's not great. It's extremely tempting to subscribe to all of your observables and set their values as properties on your component class. Please avoid doing this. It's a code smell. Instead, just keep track of your observable in your class. Don't unwrap it, subscribe to it, take its value out, and put it out as another property on your class. Instead, if you needed to do that, you probably needed it so that you could display it on the template, on the HTML. Well, instead, use the async pipe to do that. Okay. Let's talk more about unsubscribing. To be honest, whenever we talk about subscriptions, we're usually talking more about how to unsubscribe from them to avoid having memory leaks. Okay. Oh no, memory leaks. See, that's the point of why RxJS was actually originally involved with Angular, to avoid memory leaks. There's a lot to the story, and there's a guy named Ben Lesh, which you should follow on Twitter or wherever you like to follow people. And he had a hand in getting Angular, the Angular 2 and beyond, to start using RxJS for a lot of things. So if we subscribe to an observable, though, we must also unsubscribe. The ability to cancel subscription is the gold nugget that Ben Lesh originally proposed to the Angular team to make RxJS a better default for async operations than promises would be. In RxJS, you can cancel. Let me show you how. First way, .unsubscribe. The worst possible way to unsubscribe from your subscriptions. I might get hate mail for that as well, and that's okay. Technically, it works. You can store references to all your subscriptions and then manually call unsubscribe on all of them in your ng on destroy. I have made a little visual there for you. Well, what if you have a bunch of subscriptions? Well, then you got to unsubscribe from each one, and it sucks. So don't do unsubscribe. I used to do this, and then I learned there are better ways. There's better options. Two of them are operators, the take operator and the take until operator, and the third one is the async pipe. So don't do this. Never unsubscribe. Never surrender. Okay, Angular pipe is fantastic for the async pipe is fantastic for all the reasons I already mentioned. But there's one really cool feature of it that I intentionally left out. The feature is that it handles unsubscribing automatically, so you never have to. If your component is destroyed because you left that page and went to a different page, RxJS, the async pipe, will unsubscribe from its subscription automatically. That is a huge benefit. It makes your code smaller, shorter, and easier to read. All right, the other ways. So the async pipe works if you're using an observable in your template, but the take and take until operators are useful for when you're using observables in your TypeScript class, in your view model. Okay, so use take one if you want to get something out of an observable one time and move on. It's like, oh, the user clicked a button, let's get the value out of the observable and do something with it one time. Use the take until operator if you want to use a long-lived subscription that needs to do logic every time a new emission happens. I'm running way low on time, but it looks like I'm at the end of my talk. Thank you for your time. Okay. The only thing that I want to say more about RxJS at this point is that instead of unsubscribing a million times in your ng on destroy, you should create a subject. Remember that subjects are great for sending a signal. And you should, in your ng on destroy, which is it's the lifecycle hook that gets called when your component gets destroyed, call next on your unsubscribe subject. Ng unsubscribe or unsubscribe all, whatever you want to call it. You just make a private new subject. And then you have every one of your subscriptions pipe before you subscribe to them. Take until you're supposed to unsubscribe. And then you can call ng unsubscribe.next unsubscribe.complete, and that will unsubscribe and complete all of your observables, leaving no memory leaks.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. You have now become best friends. This talk is based on my articles. It's sort of a reformulating of it. You can go check those out, medium.com, at Erik Slack. And I am a talk show host, so come listen to my podcast for now. It's going to be even more live stuff too. Alyssa was on there. She had a fantastic episode with us. So come check out the Angular experience. It's not just about technology.
Did you make that logo? Is that you? Did you make that?
I didn't make this. We paid an artist to do it, and she does all of my art now. She's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Here's the website
and the meetup, right?
Angularcommunity.net. So go there if you're interested in attending a meetup to learn Angular, which if you're a junior dev, then you definitely should. And if you're a senior too as well. So thank you. You can come follow me and hang out with me online. And that's a fun game for all of you fellow nerds out there. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Erik, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And I really do appreciate you taking your time to come on our stream for beginners and tell us all about RxJS. I think that was a beautiful primer. So
thank you. Y'all are awesome.
Have a wonderful, I think it's almost afternoon for you. So have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. I am just seriously so blessed to know all of these beautiful people to come on the stream today and share their knowledge.